Hello. So I wanted to share with you my own transformational experience I had with ecstatic dance and what was the catalyst for me to end up going and doing my DJing course and putting on women's events in Norwich for ecstatic dance. So, for a bit of background, I left school and I trained in dance at Norwich City College, and I auditioned to lots of dance schools in London. And it was kind of disappointing because I got in everywhere, but I just couldn't afford the school fees, so I wasn't able to go. And I ended up going and doing like podium dancing. I also ended up doing stripping, and then I just put dancing behind me for good. I hung up my dancing shoes and I kind of just put dancing into my shadow, and I focused on other stuff, work, and relationships. So I've always been like just so in love with dancing and moving my body, and I definitely felt like I suffered some anxiety at college with the structure of choreography. I would get really stressed with myself if I couldn't pick it up. I wanted to be the best. I wanted to get it quickly, and that put a lot of pressure on me, and I actually did suffer with a bit of body dysmorphia and anxiety at that time, and I did actually go on some medication at about 17, 18 to help manage that. And it was tough because obviously I have a love and a passion for dancing, and I'm thinking, why do I hate this? Like, I know I love dancing, but I hate this. I'm putting all this pressure on myself. There's so much pressure to be thin, just all of the stereotypical things that happens in the life of a dancer. But yeah, my mum even used to say to me, before I could even walk, I would crawl to a speaker and I would pull myself up on this big speaker that we had, and I would just bounce. And this was like, I must have been so young, maybe 2. And I remember she said it was to the song Shiny Happy People. I can't remember who sings it. And also Prodigy Firestarter was one of my favourite songs to dance to, apparently, which is very apt considering I actually became a fire performer for a while. Anyway, that's a bit of background. So the catalyst for me to put on these events was after the birth of my son. So I would have described the birth of my son prior to ecstatic dance stressful, intense, kind of horrible. I think I had this plan, like so many of us women do. We're kind of almost given this book, like, what's your birth plan? As if we are sort of completely in control of that, when actually I think the baby is in control of that, and also just the universe. I think actually when you try to have a plan, is actually when it sort of goes a bit wrong. And I sort of internalized all this shame about not having the birth I want. I was thinking maybe I shouldn't have got that sweep. Maybe that's why, it was so stressful and he wouldn't come out. And for context, I was in labour for about 72 hours, having contractions continuously with nothing else happening. I got 1 centimetre dilated in that whole time. So I would get really triggered afterwards, seeing all these beautiful birth stories and just thinking, oh, like, why didn't that happen to me? Like, I visualized that. Why did it not happen? So I ended up having a cesarean. So I ended up starting off having a natural birth. And then I ended up having to have the oxytocin drip. My waters broke. The epidural, and then an emergency C-section because my little Asta, he wasn't coming out. He was not coming out, and it just got to the point where I was exhausted, hadn't slept for 2 nights, and I just remember thinking, how am I ever going to sleep again? I'm about to have a baby. I haven't slept for 2 days. I've had more sleep on nights out and benders than this. Do you know what I mean? So I was just like, oh. Anyway, he got so stressed out inside me that he had pooed himself, and his heart rate kept dropping with every contraction, and I just said, I need this baby out. I can't do this anymore. It's too much. I'm scared, So afterwards, it was a lot to process being a new mum. I was trying to still be myself, and I was trying to be like, you know, this baby will fit into me, I'm not going to change. But something happens and you just are not the same person as you were before, and there's so much internal struggle and battle trying to cling to parts of yourself whilst trying to be a new mum and trying to be yourself. And it's just, I found it a lot, and there probably was some postnatal depression there, which I look back on now and I would say there was, but I wouldn't have admitted it at the time, because I would have just said that I'm strong and all this, and I was afraid to be vulnerable. So after all this and all this trauma, this catheter I had for 10 days and just the pain, and you know, I had all of this internalized shame about the birth not going the way I wanted it to. And anyway, so randomly saw that there was an ecstatic dance on literally in the park behind my house, about a 1-minute walk, and I was like, you know, I'm gonna go to that. I just need to go and I just move my body and just feel like myself. I can't drink right now because I'm breastfeeding and all of this, so I was like, this seems like perfect. And I remember going, and this was such a transformational experience for me. It's different for everybody. Not everybody has a transformation experience, but I feel like there is always some sort of shedding that happens when you dance with other people, and there's almost like this barrier of vulnerability that gets shed, and I just think that is healing in itself. So I went to this ecstatic dance, and as I was dancing and moving, you know, there's different songs play. Some of them are more meditative, some of them are more climactic, and you kind of like, you're really flowing in this different music that's being played, being channeled by the music. And I ended up at one point being on the floor, and I was in the fields and the grass, and the sun was setting, and it was really beautiful. And I remember laying with my hands back and my legs up, as if you would giving birth, which is not conducive to birth, but you know, it was kind of that pose that we all know and associate with birth. And I was sat here like this, and I was like in the flow, and it actually makes me emotional now. I had this like overwhelming feeling of pride and of my birth, and I just shed this this connotation that I had with it being really stressful and intense and horrible, and I kind of almost, it rewired my brain into feeling like the birth was actually really powerful, and I used these other words to describe it now. My birth was powerful, it was intense, and it was exactly how it was supposed to be. Instead of using the word traumatic, it was traumatic, it was horrible, it was like, you know, I just changed those words to, you know what, it was intense and it was powerful, and it was exactly how it was supposed to be. And I released so much shame and so much guilt in that process, and it makes me emotional because it brings it back about how powerful it was. And I just remember coming back, and I just remember crying to my son's dad and saying, God, like, I just had this really empowering, like, powerful ecstatic dance, and I just feel so much better from it. And it just really moved me. And and so I just knew then, you know what, like, I want to go into this, like, I want to be able to give women that same transformative experience that I've had. And whether it's as magnificent as that, whether it's just, like I said earlier, just these feelings of being vulnerable and just shedding small parts of ourselves that don't serve us, or if it's just it was just so magical. And I just feel like as much as I love ecstatic dance, and I love ecstatic dance with mixed group, for me it was such a feminine process, such an, you know, I think because of it was related to my birth, and it was kind of vulnerable, and I felt like actually there are no spaces for women to dance without this subconscious a subconscious kind of feeling of male, you know, of male presence. Obviously within us we all have that kind of, yeah, I guess like when there's masculine energy, sometimes it just, we can't fully be in our feminine and be vulnerable. There's a lot of internalized patriarchal stuff, a lot of shame and movement. So yeah, I felt like I just wanted to put on a dance for women, and that is what I'm doing right now. And they're going really well, and they're only getting better. And I'm also going to be doing an online community for those that can't reach me in person but still want to have that transformational experience and still want to dance with other women. Then I felt like I really need to put something online so other women can experience this from the comfort of their own home. Maybe you don't even feel ready to be in a group in person, and a virtual group feels safe to you, but you still have that support and connection with other women. So that is what I'm doing right now, and I really wanted to share that story with you, my birth story and the transformation that I had with ecstatic dance, and how that helped me shed and rewire what I used to call traumatic, and I used to not eat, and I used to have all this guilt about. Now I'm just like, this was Asta's birth, and if I have another child, that's going to be their birth or our birth, and that's going to be our birth story. Yeah, and just empower other women. So thank you for watching this video. This is my transformational story for ecstatic dance, and I really hope that you can join me somehow for an ecstatic dance, or even find one in your area, because it really can be transformational.